Hi everyone, and welcome to my October wrap-up. I didn't read a huge amount of books this month, it didn't feel like, but I did read a couple of really good books, and there were also some that weren't so good as well. The month started off pretty rubbish and then it got better as it went along. So I'm just gonna get straight into the video, straight into the books that I read this month and go from there. The first book that I read in October was just a short one. This one's called The In-Between by Mark Klein. And this book I picked up a while ago from the works for £1. It was like in the sale and I thought I'd just give it a go, you know, cheap book. And it's also a Netflix film, which I saw on this, so I did actually watch the film after reading the book. This is a YA book, so the main character Tessa, she's only 17 and she meets this guy called Skylar and they fall in love and that kind of thing. And then right at the beginning, like, you find out, and it's on the blurb anyway, you find out Skylar dies in like a big accident, so she's dealing with her grief and stuff like that, and she starts having weird things happening after he dies, like there's like weird messages which she thinks are coming from Skylar. So that's the basic like plot of the book. Each chapter pretty much goes back and forth from the past when she was meeting Skylar, and then like how they met and how they became a couple, and then also present day where she's dealing with the grief and getting these strange messages from what she thinks is Skylar's ghost. And the ones about the like in the present day I enjoyed a lot more. Those parts were okay, but the parts in the past where they met and stuff, I found them so boring. Like nothing much happened, it wasn't really that cute, like I don't know, I just really didn't care about the past chapters, so I was kind of skimming through those as quickly as I could. The ones in the present day I enjoyed a lot more, and there was like more going on, but overall I really did not enjoy this. I just thought it was quite boring and it was very, very predictable, very cheesy and cringy. I also watched the film after I read the book, and I must say I do prefer the film over the book. The film's very cheesy and cliche because it's the same storyline and stuff, but it's better than the book, so maybe give this book a miss. I ended up giving it a 2.75 stars. And also I've started giving my books 0.25 ratings, so like quarter star ratings as well as half stars, because I've read so many books now. I'm finding it really hard to rate books just using the half star system, so I've started rating them with quarter stars as well, which just makes more sense to me. The next book that I read was on my Kindle, which is Wrecked by Lauren Asher, which is the third book in the Dirty Hair series, and this one I enjoyed a lot more than the first two books in the series. This book follows Jax, and he's suffering with like mental health, and he's got really bad anxiety, and he like drinks alcohol and takes pills to like get rid of the anxiety and to make him feel better. And this girl gets assigned to like not babysit him, but like watch him and like improve his reputation and stuff, because he's known for like sleeping around, having lots of alcohol and being a bit of a mess. So she's there to control him, help him, and just get his reputation back on track. And I definitely enjoyed this book a lot more than the first two in the series. This one, it still was too long, I think, for a romance, but it was a lot more enjoyable. There's a lot more going on, and there's a lot more like character growth and development with the characters, and there was just more to it, I think, than the first two books. So I definitely enjoyed this one a lot more. I gave it a 3.75 stars, so not a bad rating at all. And I've heard the fourth book in the series is actually the best one in the series, so I'm quite excited to get to that one. And then that'll be the series complete. And all of the Dirty Hair series books are on Kindle Unlimited as well, so that is a bonus. That's why I read them on my Kindle. Then after that, I read Six Scorched Roses by Carissa Broadbent, which is a novella that you're meant to read after The Serpent and the Wings of the Night, which is the first book in the Crowns of Nyaxia series or whatever, which I read last month. So I thought I'd read the novella, and this novella actually had nothing to do with the first book in the series, but apparently the character in this novella is like really going to be a big part of the rest of the series. For a novella, I actually really enjoyed this. Normally novellas I don't give very high ratings because they're just short stories, there's not a huge amount to them, and there's not really a huge plot going on and stuff. But this one I really enjoyed. It was nearly 200 pages long, so it's quite long for a novella, but this book I actually enjoyed more, I think, than the first book in the series. I'm not too sure, but I did really enjoy this. This novella follows a girl called Lilith, and she lives in this town there's like a disease that's spreading around, and it's just a complete mess. Everyone's dying of this disease and all sorts, and she's trying to create a cure for this disease. So she goes to this vampire every I don't know how often it is, I can't remember, but in return for some of his blood, she gives him a rose, and apparently there's something special about this rose, which is why this book's obviously called Six Scorched Roses, and she ends up giving him 6 roses in exchange for the blood over time, and then it just goes from there really, and there's some sort of like romance that develops. So it's a really good novella. I really enjoyed this one. And then the next book that I read is the reason that I didn't get a huge amount of books read this month, and that is Salem's Lot by Stephen King. I wanted to read this one this month because I know this is supposed to be one of his spookiest, and it's set in like a small town that's like loads of creepy things are happening, and yeah, it's just got really dark, spooky vibes. So I thought it'd be perfect for this time of year, perfect for October, near Halloween. So I wanted to give this one a go. But this just took me so long to get through. And I think it was mainly the first 250 pages, which basically the first 250 pages, barely anything happened, I feel like. You were just getting to know all the characters in this town and just knowing a bit about all their backstories. And there were so many different characters that I was getting really confused, to be honest, about who was who and why they mattered to the story. I mean, they all kind of had a part in the end, I suppose, but yeah, it just really dragged on. I don't think the first 250 pages needed to be that long. That could have been condensed into like 50 pages easy. But that's Stephen King for you. He likes to drag out things, and he likes to write really descriptive and things like that. So I guess that's what you get for reading Stephen King. Once I got through the first 250 pages, I started to enjoy this a lot more. And there were like more creepy things starting to happen, and there was just more action and more things going on really. There were still other parts of it which were slow and I don't think needed to be in the book. They were a bit pointless, but there were also parts of the book where I just couldn't put it down. So I was left with very mixed feelings after reading this. It's basically about a guy called Ben Mears who moves into this he moves to this town which is called Jerusalem's Lot, which is Salem's Lot for short. And there's this old house there where some creepy things have happened before, and there was something that happened to this guy Ben previously there, and he came to write a book about this house. And then he starts meeting people in the town, creepy things start happening, and things just get worse and worse and worse gradually as you go through the book. So overall, I did enjoy this and I would recommend it, but I think if you don't like slow burns and you don't like books that are going to be quite slow and yeah, just really slow paced basically, if you don't like that, then this book's not going to be for you. But it was worth a read. I'm glad I read it. But I ended up giving it 3.25 stars because I think the plot was really good and everything. It was just the execution and just the slowness of it which let it down, unfortunately. And the next book that I read was actually one that my mum read when she was a young teenager, and she wrapped it up for me in a blind date with a book kind of thing, which I opened this in one of my reading vlogs, which I will link in the description below, and I'll put a card above as well, so you can watch that vlog if you want to find more of my in-depth thoughts about this book. It is The Secret Diary of Adrian Mole, aged 13 3/4 by Sue Townsend. This is completely written in diary form. It's basically just his diary, and he's a very weird child. He thinks he's some like secret intellectual, and he writes some cringy poems and stuff which are a bit weird and random, and he's in love with this girl at school, and it's just very weird and cringy, to be honest. You can tell it's very old from the cover. It was first published in 1982, and you can definitely tell that it was written in this time as well, because there's also some things which in this book which now you couldn't get away with, like just some things that were a little bit racist or sexist, and you could tell that it was written back then rather than now, because now you just wouldn't get away with writing something like that. But this book was entertaining in a strange kind of way. I did enjoy my time reading it. It's only very, very short, so I flew through it. And I wasn't really sure how to rate this, to be honest, so I just gave it a 3 stars, like middle kind of rating, because I didn't really know. But it was entertaining, but just very strange and random. And also throughout the month of October, I listened to Spare by Prince Harry, and I'm not going to go into my thoughts too much about this because it's very controversial and I don't want to start up a debate or anything, and I don't really want to get into all that kind of stuff and all the politics and like, yeah, I just don't want to do that. But I did really enjoy this, and it gave me more of an insight into the royal family and how things work, and yeah, it was just really interesting, to be honest. I think he was treated very badly, and I do understand why he did what he did. And I gave this book a 4 stars overall, and I'm not going to say anything else, but yeah, that is my rating, and I did enjoy it, so yeah. I also then read Powerless by Elsie, which is the third book in the Chestnut Spring series, and I really enjoyed this. I think my favourite book in the series so far is still the second book, and I will tell you why in a second, but basically this book follows Jasper and Sloane. Jasper's not related to the main Eaton brothers, he was just taken in from a young age, so he is basically like family, but he's not actually related to them. And then Sloane is the Eaton boys' cousin, so Jasper and Sloane aren't actually related, but they've kind of grown up as cousins, I suppose, but they're not actually related or anything, so it's fine. And they've always had a thing for each other throughout their whole life, but neither one of them knew that they still felt that way about each other and stuff. At the beginning of this book, Sloane is actually marrying someone else, and it starts off with her wedding day, and that wedding day goes completely wrong, and Jasper comes and saves her, and it ends up with Jasper and her going on this road trip together, and they kind of talk about their feelings and things there, and I did really enjoy this. I feel like the only reason I didn't give this a higher rating was because there was suddenly, like all of a sudden, some like really smutty scenes that came out of nowhere. And I know there are like smutty scenes in these books, and I get that, but I feel like the emotion didn't come first. I feel like the smut came first, and I feel like emotion should always come first. But that's just my opinion, and that's just how I prefer romance books to be. So there's more of that emotional connection rather than just physical. But then afterwards there was more of the emotional side of things, and they did talk about things more, and yeah. So I did really enjoy this, but it's just that one thing which kind of left me feeling a bit about that middle section. I did really enjoy this, as well as I've enjoyed the whole of this series so far, and I can't wait to get to the next book soon. And then the final book that I read in August, we're definitely not in August. The final book that I read in October was Never Lie by Frieda McFadden, and this, I absolutely loved this thriller. So I've read Frieda McFadden's The Housemaid and The Housemaid's Secret, and I absolutely love those books as well. They were really, really good, so fast paced, so like easy to read, that the writing was just so simple. This one was exactly the same. This one was so good, and I feel like everything she writes is intentional. There's like no sentences and paragraphs which mean nothing. Every little detail that she puts in there means something later on in the book, and I love that. I love how it all comes together. This book follows a husband and wife who are going to view this house, and they get caught. It's like this massive old house, and they go to view it and they get stuck there in the middle of like a snowstorm, so they have to stay there overnight. And the wife, I think she was called Trisha, I can't remember, but she finds this like secret room behind a bookcase which have loads of tapes from like a therapist's like sessions. So she starts listening to some of those, and a few creepy things start happening in the house and that sort of thing. And then there's also a past timeline which is told from a different person's point of view. I can't remember her name, but it's basically the point of view of the therapist, and this therapist is actually dead now, but so that's why these parts are in the past, and it's kind of what's going on there. And obviously they're going to connect, the past and present timelines are going to connect at some point, and it was so good. The plot twist I didn't see coming. There was one thing I did see coming, but there was also some other theories I had in my head which weren't correct. But yeah, I just love her writing, I love her thrillers, and I want to read every single book that she's written. I want to work my way through her backlist, and they're all on, I think all of them are like on Kindle Unlimited, so perfect. I gave this book a 4.5 stars. It wasn't quite 5 stars because there was a couple issues I had with it, which I went into a little bit more detail in my vlog, which is actually coming up soon. I think it should be up next week, but we will see. And that is everything that I read in October. I don't feel like I read very much, but I did enjoy quite a lot of the books that I read, and there were some mediocre books in there as well. And I'm not going to do a TBR for November because I don't really know what I want to read, to be honest. I'm kind of in a mood where I don't exactly know what I want to read. I've also got a couple videos coming up in November which like make me have to read certain types of books, so I don't really want to go through what they are because it will spoil those reading vlogs. But yeah, let me know in the comments below what your favourite book that you read in October was, and please give the video a like and subscribe if you want to see more from me, and I will hopefully see you in my next video. Bye!